Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the one and only Mr. Jonathan Twomley. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well this morning. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing wonderful. One of the things I wanted to do was kind of have an honest discussion with you about multifamily investing, specifically big multifamily investing, which I have not done. Right, the
Oh,
biggest thing.
not an honest. I don't want to have an honest one.
No, not an honest. Well, I
I'd,
meant like
I'd, I'd, I'd rather lie about it.
That's not what I meant, but that's pretty funny. What I meant is kind of a deep and kind of introspective look, because I think a lot of people want to do large multifamily.
Sure.
Lots of people see Grant Cardone talk about bigger is better. Lots of people hear about syndicators doing this and that. Brandon Turner's doing this and that. And there's a lot of press for the average person, which I put myself in, kind of the residential guys, that bigger is better. And I believe a lot of the talk track out there is misleading. And let me frame it up because I want to get your opinion on this. I think a lot of these social media kind of people who are just raising money are kind of making it about the underwriting, the Excel spreadsheet, as I joke. And I believe while that's important, right, you obviously have to be able to run a deal. It's certainly not the most important. I believe what is being under talked about, and you've told me this over the years, and that's networking. You've got to network with brokers. You've got to become one of their top 2 or 3 phone calls. You got to get the deals early, those things. So I'm just curious, when you break down what makes you an amazing syndicator, what allowed you to buy your deals and ultimately sell them near the peak, how do you break down what you do? And if it's in your download, let's make sure to call that out too, because more and more people need to get that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll show you the download. This wasn't meant to be a pitch of the download, by the way, but this has just come up. So this is it. I'll tell you at the end how you can get it. This thing is called The Ultimate Checklist, a step-by-step guide to buy your first 100-unit property with other people's money and get paid to do it. So this is syndication guidebook, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the first question I'm gonna sort of answer the question with a question, I guess, and
sure.
then I'll answer your question. But when you talk about bigger is better, look, the argument for bigger is better is that in a lot of ways, it takes the same amount of work to do a small deal as do a big deal. And there are a lot of efficiencies that are involved with bigger deals that make it potentially more profitable.
Sure.
So as long as you're going to go through all the headache of doing a big deal, the argument is, well, doing a deal, a multifamily deal, go do a bigger one because you're going to make more money, right? Sure. Same amount of work. That's yes and no, right? Mm-hmm. Because obviously with a bigger deal, there is more work involved in a bigger deal in the sense of like there's more work in convincing brokers that you're legit and you can close. And there's more work involved in getting investors and getting the other partners that you're going to need to run the deal. And so when you talk about networking, those are absolutely critical things. You cannot put a post up on Facebook and expect to get some of these critical partners that I'll talk about in a moment. And I see people do this all the time. But people come into my Facebook group and they put up. Honestly, I don't know how someone convinces a broker to even let them bid on a 300-unit property when they've never done a deal before and they don't have their team set up. But I see people coming into the group putting up posts that say like, "Hey, I've got a deal. I need a balance sheet partner," or "Hey, I got a deal. Who do you know who manages properties in this market?" And I'm like, right?
What are you doing?
Yeah. And if you haven't gotten that stuff lined up ahead of time, you're just setting yourself up for failure, right? And the failure being like not being able to close the deal because either you don't get the debt or you can't raise the money, and then you look bad in the broker's eyes, and that broker's never going to show you another deal, until you come back with them and say, "Hey, I closed 10 deals with somebody else. Now you can trust me," right? So you have to network your way into those things. So first of all, like the classic one I always talk about, and I talk about it in this download is, and I actually have also some mini courses and stuff about this stuff, but you have to network with brokers. You can't, like, you're not going to get anywhere by just, you know, responding to a broker's post, or, you know, like you see a deal listed somewhere and you just go and bid on it. Like sometimes you can get in the door that way, but really the way that you're going to get in the door and get to see the best deals is by building relationships with brokers first. And this is not as difficult as you might expect it to be. But I think a lot of people have a lot of fear and trepidation around, like, well, why is a broker going to pay attention to me? They will, as long as you do a couple of things first, right? And they're not very complicated or expensive, but you should get like simple website, have a business, right? You don't even need to go and like form an LLC at first if you don't have a deal. Although I always advise like doing business through an LLC. I think it's smarter, but you don't even have to do that. Get a simple website, you know, have some simple criteria on the website, sort of what you're looking for. Get some of the kind of paraphernalia of being in business, like business cards, right? Have an email address that's not like, you know, 100unitinvestor@gmail.com, right? I see that all the time. I never take those people seriously, unless I already know that they're serious, but I never really understand why, if you're just starting out, like you're not going to spend, what is it to buy a Google domain? No, I mean, it's like, it's cheap, right? You're talking, this is
pennies,
right? I mean, to sign up for Google Workspace and to buy a domain, you can buy a domain for $14.99 a year, right? Yeah. If you're not willing to, and that's, I think, the thinking, like, if you're not willing to spend $15 to buy your own domain name, like, why is anybody going to think that you can, you know, take down a multi-million-dollar deal, right, for multifamily, right? So just those simple things will then let a broker know that you have credibility. And it can also be helpful to put together some kind of what I call a credibility package, which is where you actually kind of put together a professional looking package. Doesn't have to be long, so 3-4 pages, where you've got like your bio. Hopefully you've got a whole team built. You've got all the team members in there. You've got like your mortgage broker, you've got your lawyers, your accountants, basically making yourself look beefed up as like you're legit. Your local property manager. Again, this is why you want to have the property manager first lined up before you even start looking for deals, right? Have that whole team listed there. So like a broker takes a look at this and goes, oh, this guy's all ready to go. He can close the deal, right? And then maybe a little professional kind of background on yourself. And even if you haven't been involved in real estate before, you know, if you have a professional background, the brokers are going to understand, like, hey, this person's legit. And if this person's got some money, right? Perhaps, right? Yeah. And so those things are all really critical. So you want to network your way into brokers. And the last point on brokers is like, if at all possible, you want to get some kind of warm introduction. So go through your network. You never know who your network knows. Ask your network for introductions to brokers, or find out who the brokers are, you know, on Google or whatever, punch them into LinkedIn and see how you're connected. You may be surprised that you're only, you know, a connection away from these guys and can get an intro. Anytime you can get a personal intro to anybody is like, you just leapfrog above the rest of the pack, right? Because it's just human psychology, right? Then another trick I'll tell you about is Crexi. Crexi is a commercial real estate website. Especially in smaller markets, a lot of brokers will actually list deals on Crexi. And I'm not talking about like the garbage deals. I'm talking about like their good deals, because they don't have the reach necessarily that a lot of brokers in bigger markets have. So they put them on Crexi. It's actually how I found my hotel deal that I'm about to talk about in the next section. But Crexi, if you pay for a pro membership on Crexi, which is again not hugely expensive, what happens, and I've been shocked, frankly, you go to a deal, you click on the deal, right? The broker sees who clicked on the deal, and the brokers then are calling you. I get calls from brokers all the time and emails from brokers all the time, because I clicked on because I was just curious. It wasn't even like necessarily like that serious about it, but I'm like, oh, what's this, right? Yep. I literally just got off the phone. The reason I was late to our first session was I just got off the phone with a broker who reached out to me because he saw something that I clicked on, And this is a really good relationship that we're starting. I'm probably going to head up. He's up in Buffalo. I'm probably going to head up there and, in the next few weeks and meet him in person. And, he's a broker, a big brokerage firm up there. So
Nice.
this is just another way that you can kind of like network into this.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to ask you this again is always self-reflection. Even in the residential space, I personally wasted the first 5 years of my residential was all living in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere around the world. I didn't purposefully execute networking until year 6. That was a huge mistake. It's you can go, I guess, fast by yourself, but you can't go far. You need to have a team. I seriously, like, if I would have started networking like I do now in year 1, I would be bigger. I would own more, and I would have retired earlier. It's that simple, right? I am naturally an introvert, which people don't really get, right? I am comfortable in a room full of people saying nothing. I'm comfortable living in an Excel spreadsheet in my own head. I am not naturally an extrovert. Naturally. So it was comfortable for me to build a very sophisticated Excel worksheet with multiple tabs and depreciation, just all these other, tax savings and just complicated stuff that doesn't mean anything. I think a lot of people in the multifamily space, because it's so much bigger and can lead to multi-year projections and this, that, and the other, they get lost in Excel. I just want people to hear real money is made in relationships. Tell everybody what you're looking for. Ask for warm introductions. I think beautiful. Just folks, it's so not about Excel. That's what I wanted people to hear.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, Michael, I'm just like you too. I mean, I'm also introverted. I have like a weird quirk in my personality where I feel a lot more comfortable. I can get up on a stage and talk to 1,000 people, and that is a lot more comfortable for me than like having to mingle at a cocktail party.
Yes,
absolutely. Make small talk, right?
Yes. Oh.
Right. And
yes.
Like the small talk is just painful for me. I don't, it's like,
I'm not good at it.
I don't know what to say. I feel self-conscious, like all this kind of stuff. But like, yeah, I can get on a stage and talk to 1,000 people. I can like get on this podcast every week with you. And like that, all that stuff is fine. So everybody thinks I'm extroverted because I like to yak when it's when I'm talking
when it's
about
your area. Yeah,
that's right. When it's like what I know and like, talking with a good friend like you, like I can,
no problem.
Hard to shut me up. But like,
yeah.
Try to get me to do small talk at a cocktail party. It's like, oh God. Then I'm like, always go to these, I literally like every conference I go to, like halfway through conference, I just have to retreat to my hotel room. I'm just wiped out. Yeah, no, I'm just like,
this is work. This is work.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Right.
It's
so,
funny.
but back to but you still got to do it. Right. You got to do the networking and the other thing that's just super critical is, and this is especially true when you're starting out, this networking. Like once you get established, then it becomes it's still really important. But people start coming to you more, a little bit easier. You don't have to do as much of it, right? And especially like brokers and whatnot, like it becomes a lot easier to talk with those people because you're already legit, right? But when you're starting out though, like investors and partners, like you got to go talk to people in person. Like if you're a new syndicator, like very few people are going to invest in your deal just because like it's a good deal. There may be some, but it's going to be much more important for people to know and trust you and be willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. And it's almost impossible to do that without actually talking with people like one-on-one and getting to know them. And so you need to go and be talking with people about what you're doing. And when I talk with my students, like I get out there, talk with people, just talk about what you're doing, make connections, build your list slowly. It's going to take time at first, but it'll snowball once you get momentum, right? Then you can start thinking about some things to do for like authority, like giving talks and stuff like that to kind of build some credibility with people. But you got to get out there. This is not going to happen from behind a desk. You got to get out there.
Yes.
And then you also need to meet, especially when you're early on, and even now for me, and as you get bigger, like it always looks like people are doing these deals on their own. Like you see these well-known people who are like, hey, I've got $1 billion under management, and like and they're the face of the brand, right? And maybe they're the podcaster, and you think they've done it all themselves. If you pull the curtain back, what you find out is sometimes they've built big organizations of people who are like all out there raising money, essentially, or they work with like 10 other people like me to help them raise the money, right? And help them pull these deals off. They're not doing it on their own, right? And so you have to go and build those relationships with other people in your field. And I think especially in like everybody within the syndicator world, right? You're kind of like, what's the word? Like, you're like everybody's rival, right? Like you're their friend and their rival at the same time.
Rival,
right?
I like that. I've never heard that. That's good.
I just made it up on the spot. I was trying to come up with a word.
There you go.
So, and
that's good.
And it's because literally, like you may be
friends here and rivals there. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you may be competing with somebody for the same deal, but then you also may be helping them raise money on their deal and vice versa. And awesome, so you really you can't. And when I got into the business, I thought of everybody as a rival, right? And I don't want to let them know what I'm doing because like they might steal something from me or whatever. What I realized is like you just can't get anywhere like that. You have to partner with people, to work. So, I mean, we could go on about this for a long time because there's a lot more pieces to your team that you need, but I won't, and I'll save you the headache of listening to me talk about it. You can just go get this.
Yes, please.
And it'll tell you.
I've got it. It's amazing. You brought it up, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. I got it that day. So it's very well done.
It'll tell you all the steps, right? Now this is just a checklist. It doesn't like go into great detail about everything, but if you want like the overview, and you can read through this in 10 minutes or so, just to get yourself the kind of picture of all the steps involved. And please don't be overwhelmed, because I literally did like everything to try to be as inclusive as possible in this, just so you know what's coming up. But you can focus on the networking aspects up front. And then the last point I want to make on this networking thing is that everybody that I know, I've got friends who in this business who scale up really fast, like built big portfolio in the time that it took me to build like my little business. Like they built up huge portfolios, right? Created massive success for themselves. What they all did, which I didn't do, and now I'm shifting my business and my mindset into this, is that they teamed up with other people and sort of broke up their business into 4 or 5 component pieces. And rather than trying to do everything themselves, which is, so I was like finding deals, underwriting, raising money, due diligence, dealing with the lenders, dealing with the investors, doing all that stuff myself, right? You can do that. It's possible to do that, but you cannot scale if you do it that way. You have to find the person who loves to raise money, the person who loves to underwrite deals, the person who loves to talk with brokers, right? The person who loves to run the deal once you have it, once you own it, right? All those are very different skills. And if you try to do all that yourself, what you'll find, and what I found is that some parts of it you don't like. And then the parts of it that you don't like, guess what happens? They don't get done. And when they don't get done, then your business suffers. So for you to scale, you have to find the people who like to do those other things that you don't like to do. And one of the things that kind of holds people back, it certainly held me back. It was very hard for me to imagine that there are people who actually love to do the stuff that I hate.
Everybody hates this. No,
right?
It's really weird.
Yeah, you project yourself onto this, and you find that, like, there's actually people who love that stuff.
Yeah.
Even though you hate it, right? It's kind of like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs also have this problem where they think like everybody wants, like, doesn't everybody want to be an entrepreneur? Nobody wants to be an employee. And they realize that actually that's not true. Lots of people are really happy being employees. The last thing they want is to run a business. But for entrepreneurs, are like, they can't imagine the employee mindset, right? Because especially, and they've been there. So they're like, oh, I hated that, So it's the same thing with building a business. You really gotta partner with people who love to do the stuff that you hate to do. And believe me, they're there. And the thing is, what you love to do, they hate too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's how you grow.
Well, do me a favor, close with where they can find this amazing checklist. Again, something I've downloaded, printed out, and consumed. Where can they get it?
So all you got to do is go to, the URL is not on this page. You go to apartmentinvestorsclub.com.
There you go. Apartmentinvestors.com.
Apartmentinvestorsclub.com.
Club.
Just like
Sorry. There you go.
Apartmentinvestorsclub.com, and you can get this download.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
You're welcome.